Welcome back to Sky Sports News. Let's bring you some more detail now on the big breaking news this evening from the world of French football, that seven-time champions Lyon have been relegated to Ligue due to financial issues. Let's get some more on this. I'm delighted to say we're joined by the French football expert, Julien Laurent. Julien, a very good evening to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us to explain more on this. Can you explain what this is about? Why have Lyon been relegated?
Yeah, they had interviews today with the French DNCG, which is basically the French regulators for football. They look after all the clubs' account, all the financial health of the professional clubs in France. And today was the day where John Textor and his director of football were going into the office to show their plan and explain why Lyon should not be relegated. Because if you remember, back in November, they'd been provisionally relegated by the DNCG because at the time they were in debts of 175 million euros, so around 200 million pounds, let's say. And back then in November, the DNCG said, listen, if it stays like this, you're going to go down regardless of where you finish in the league. So you better sort out your accounts between now in November and June when you come back to see us. And John Textor was like, yes, don't worry, no problem. We will sell players in January. We will do the same before the end of June and all of that. We've got all this plan in place. So they went quite optimistic today to Paris to meet the DNCG. And actually, this news that came an hour ago tonight was a massive, massive, massive earthquake in French football, because we all thought or understood that Lyon would be okay. And actually, clearly, the plans they put forward for sorting out the financial issues were not convincing enough for the DNCG.
What can Lyon do about this, Julien? What's the next step for them?
They will appeal now, which they are allowed to do completely. The thing is, they won't have much time between now and the appeal to put a plan in place that was different than the one they presented today. For example, they sold Ryan Cherki to Manchester City for 42.5 million euros. That was part of the plan. There were other things that John Textor wanted to do. For example, transferring funds from one of his clubs in his multi-club ownership company to Lyon, which you obviously can't do. You can't take money off Botafogo to just put it on the Lyon account. So they've been trying to put a plan like that together. That didn't work. So now I'm just not sure what else they can do apart from maybe selling Malik Fofana to an English club, maybe another player or two. But again, they will be really running against the clock, and other clubs will also know that they need money very quickly. So they won't be in a powerful position, I guess, in terms of transfer markets and transfer fees. So I'm actually quite worried now, because we've seen in the past clubs who were relegated, then appealed, then find a way, new investors, money coming in from one way or another to stay up. But for Lyon, it's just like I said, like the clock is ticking massively now.
And you talked about the shockwaves being felt through French football tonight. I mean, this is, as I said before, that the seven-time French champions, regulars in the Champions League. How damaging is this for Lyon as a club, reputationally, that they're standing within the French game?
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, since John Textor took over and bought the club from Jean-Michel Aulas, who is this historic figure in Lyon, who took the club in mid-table in the second division in mid-80s to, as you said, 7 league titles in a row, semi-finals of the Champions League all the time, to this now, to being relegated to the second tier in France. John Textor's made this club a mess. There's no other way of putting it. He's been one of the worst owners, and he's been one of the worst ownership time that we've seen in French football in recent history, spending money all everywhere, sacking managers, hiring the wrong manager, sacking again another manager. It's been terrible what he's done to this club, and this is why we are now. But again, we saw this coming since John Textor arrived at the club. So it's surprising and it's shocking, but it's actually not that surprising, really. So I just don't know how you get out of this. But if you're Lyon, this is a terrible position to be in, really.
And a word on John Textor there. Obviously, we know about the situation at Crystal Palace, and there was the conflict of interest, and we saw him sell his 43% stake in Palace yesterday because of the whole European issue and both teams being in Europe next season. Do we know what all this and their relegation means for their place in Europe next season?
It could not be worse, Julian, in terms of timing, because he's trying to put his Eagles group, which is the group that has all those football clubs in it, Botafogo, Molenbeek in Belgium, Lyon, that used to have or still have for now those shares in Crystal Palace, on the stock exchange. How are you going to sell your group and get as much money as possible in terms of valuation for a group that now is selling the shares in a club in the biggest league in the world, his other club in the other top league, which is the French one, is going to be relegated to French second division because they are £200 million in debts. This is a terrible thing for John Textor, for Easy Goals Group, and for the future as well. So I don't know where you go from here. But again, we saw that coming, and this is all on John Textor. There's no other people that is responsible for this complete failure of running a football club like he has done at Lyon.
And just finally, you know, if there is no way out of this and an appeal doesn't work out for Lyon and they do find themselves in Ligue 2 next season, Julien, give us an idea of how competitive that division will be. Will it be a given that they'll get promoted at the first time of asking?
Well, you would think so, but it will depend what the budget is going into next season, because they won't be able to keep the same wage bill, for example. So the top players will have to go. We're talking about the likes of Tolisso, a World Cup winner, of Malik Fofana, who's half of the Premier League is following closely and would like to recruit those kind of like big names that they have after Ryan Cherki will have to go. So then you start with the kids from the academy, and they've got a very good academy. Can you stay in the stadium? What do you do with your stadium, your training ground? You've got a women's team that doesn't belong to you anymore because you sold it to Michel Kang, but it's still very much part of your identity and of your club. So this will have repercussions everywhere on not just one of the biggest clubs in French football, but this is the second biggest city in France after Paris. So it's just terrible timing, really. And I just hope for people who love the club and work at the club that they can find a solution.
Julien, thanks very much. We really appreciate your time and giving us more detail on what is such a seismic story, not only for French football, but European football as a whole. Good to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.